And away we go, number 8. So I think you've done really well, Rob, and I probably have as well.
Exhausting.
So we've had a nice couple of hours on Mollgolva and up on Arasht, discovering parts of Rob's hill-bagging career, and we're now on our final segment. And this, Rob, it seems a little oddity to be perched on top of a lowland Welsh hill in mid-Wales, and then to start talking about some of the big mountains that are spread around the world. But this little bit, Rob, is to talk about the ultras. So to begin with, what is an ultra?
Yeah, well, it stands for ultra prominent hill. We've been talking about Marilyn's, which have 150 metres of reascent. Ultras have 1500 metres of reascent. Started out as an American concept, 5,000 feet of prominence, topographical prominence, and it somehow made its way across to some of us in Britain, and particularly in Europe. There's some keen kind of high prominence baggers. It's not really a concept that applies to Britain because our highest hill is 1344 metres, if I remembered it correctly, Ben Nevis, which is somewhat less than 1500 metres elevation, let alone prominence. But we do have a good scattering of 600 metre prominence, or 2,000 feet prominence. We've got, including islands, about 113 of those. So we get you off to a good start on those, and you end up kind of going overseas to get a few more, and maybe a few ultras. So
now, of course, one of the probably the most difficult mountain lists to complete are the 8,000 metre peaks in the Karakoram and Himalaya. But to an extent, Rob, I know I've looked at the ultras once or twice, and as a hill list, it's spread worldwide.
Absolutely, yeah.
Many are feasible, but obviously a challenge.
Yeah, and they vary widely. I mean, some you can drive to the top of, some, are high technical climbs. I mean, Everest itself is an ultra, and some of the hardest, Himalayan peaks are ultras. A lot of them aren't because they're very high, but they're not very prominent. They're just sub-summits of others,
And I think I've looked at the ultras once or twice recently, and one of the great joys is if you go off on holiday, even on sort of European islands. I know my partner Dell, one of her hill walking claim to fame is that she's done, I believe, 2 ultras that you haven't.
Really?
Mount Olympus on Cyprus and Mount Enos on Kefalonia. And it's things like that, when you're away, and certainly in Europe, different places that you go, and there's a multitude of ultras based around Europe, isn't there?
There are, yeah. There's best part of 100 in Europe.
Now, I thought what may be quite nice is to go back to 1998, which I believe you had a trip around Switzerland, and knocking off a few of the 4,000 metre peaks there.
Yeah.
And then to see if we can progress up to today. And a couple of months ago you were in Democratic Republic of Congo and Uganda. But sort of memories from the first trip to Switzerland, Rob, was this before you realised about the ultras?
Yeah, I had no particular concept of prominence other than thinking about whether 4,000 metre summits had got, some of them are really, just minute kind of things. And there's a kind of prominence of 50 metres that some people apply, but beyond that, when I did start to think about how many ultras I might have done, I discovered that I think 3 of the Alpine 4000s I've done were actually ultras, including Finsteraarhorn and Bar des Écrins and Grand Paradiso and Grand Condam, so that's 4 actually.
Now, I know you've whizzed around Europe quite a bit, and this is, I believe, in Sicily, attempting, was it a volcano with a gas mask in
Etna, yeah.
Etna, and there's been things like with Brent and almost getting arrested on Pico de Teide in Tenerife. But I thought for this segment, Rob, because of the 10-minute gap that we got for YouTube, is to just concentrate on farther afield, some of the quite exotic places that you're now going to. And where did that first lead you to with the ultras?
Yeah, well, the first trip, the first kind of proper kind of bagging trip, I suppose, was to Indonesia. You mentioned Teide with Brent, the other person along on that occasion was Bob Packard from Arizona. He's done a huge number, well over 100 ultras, and he and I and another chap, Adam Hellman, put together this trip to Indonesia, and we went to Kinabalu, which is quite famous, but also 3 Indonesian summits, all volcanoes, the high points of Lombok, of Java, and of Sumatra. So that was kind of my first. That was a 5-week trip actually.
That sounds pretty good.
Kind of travelling involved.
So where did, again, visiting the ultras take you after Indonesia?
Afterwards, 2008, there were a couple of trips. Another trip with. Taiwan was one. The high point of Taiwan is actually nearly 4,000 metres. You think of Taiwan as being a mountaineering destination. It's not really, but it's very, very impressive. Yushan, and another trip to Europe. Tail end of 2008, went to South America for the first time, to Ecuador. We climbed the so-called Big Three. There are 3 summits nearly 6,000 metres, which is way higher than anything I'd done before. Cayambe is nearly 5,900, Cotopaxi is nearly 6,000, and Chimborazo is nearly 6,300 metres.
So you're talking about altitudes in old money over 20,000 foot now, aren't you?
Yeah, really.
How did you find that?
Okay, I take quite a long while to acclimatise, but after the first week I did okay actually, yeah.
So the trip to Ecuador, who was that with? Because I believe there's also a Norwegian friend of yours, isn't there?
Yes, amazing chap, Petter Bjørstad. He's a very good all-round mountaineer. He's obviously good on ice and snow, being from Norway, and a good skier, but a good climber as well.
Yeah.
And we put this together between us, and we climbed 2 other ultras. Petter got a 3rd actually while I was busy having a tummy bug. So it was a very successful trip actually.
So after South America, where then?
After South America, the next. Well, you mentioned I'm just back actually from Africa. I had a trip to Uganda again with Petter Bjørstad and his 2 sons. They're both keen on the mountains as well.
What's the highest point there? One is it Mount Stanley?
Stanley, yeah. We climbed 3 summits actually. Stanley itself is the highest. Margarita Peak is.
It's over 5,000 metres, isn't it?
It's well over, it's well over 5, and a couple of subsidiary summits. Also, earlier that year, went to Iran, rather entertainingly, just after the elections, and we wondered A, whether we'd get in, and B, whether we'd get out again. There's another high mountain there, Damavand, which is 5,600. Very interesting kind of insight into the place. Actually, they were very friendly. It's only the government that isn't friendly, it seems. So again, some of these trips, would they be with sort of guides? That was. You almost always have a guide. A, because it's a different country, and B, because there's perhaps a stipulation that you need to have one. But they were with people I knew. It was a trip we put together ourselves with a kind of operator out there. Again, Bob Packard was involved, Jerry Roach, a very well-known mountaineer in the US. So where next for the ultras, do you think? Any plans? Where next? Another trip to Indonesia seems to be beckoning. Is that this year or? Yes. Dan Quinn, who seems to have tired of life in Britain and gone to teach English to Indonesians. That's convenient, isn't it? A week, perhaps a couple of weeks with Petter if we sort it out in the States. I've never climbed anything in the States. And we're trying to sort out a trip to, again to South America for Aconcagua. Which that'd be good. Nearly 7,000. Yeah, one of the seven continental summits. Oh yeah. We don't get into that. And Ojos de Salado, which is the high point of some. Well, Rob, just nodding at Rob there. I've got about 20 seconds left here, so. Rob, honestly, it's greatly appreciated that you've done this today, and 8 segments for YouTube, and many, many thanks. Cheers.